Welcome to Current Situation, your weekly political pulse. I'm your host, Joshua Gale, alongside South Carolina State House Representative Jordan Pace. Every week, we aim to help you navigate the complex world of politics through biblically conservative perspectives. Before we jump into today's conversation, we want to take a moment to thank our sponsor.
We began writing these songs almost 15 years ago. We were just having fun, and we wanted to share that fun with others. The dream stayed alive after all these years. This album is about where we are now because of what we've been through. It's a celebration of our stories, the lessons we've learned, and how anything is possible when you're bound to be together. Be on the lookout this spring for Gale Bird's new EP, Look at Us Now, on all major streaming platforms. Visit galebird.com to learn more.
Today, we're joined by a well-known connector of people, entrepreneur, activist, patriot, nonprofit leader, and 100% Irish underdog, Erik Corcoran. Erik, nice to have you on.
Oh, I'm just so happy to be here. I've been hoping that this would happen, and I'm just so proud of both of you.
Thank you, Erik. Thank you. Erik and Jordan and I have known each other for many years. There was a time where the three of us graced Charleston Southern University with our presence, and I think that was the peak of the university. And all joking aside, we had a wonderful time there. Great place to be. We had great friendships, and have kept in touch over the years, and just kept it, stayed involved with each other. And Erik, you have been extremely busy. And you're like Jordan and myself. You've got your hands in some incredible initiatives to help people and to love people, care for people, better yourself, better the state, better others. But what we want to get to first is your story. It's a remarkable story, and I think it's one that needs to be shared. And so let's dive into that.
Yeah, well, first of all, one of the things that is so special that we all went to CSU is, think about like that whole model of integrating faith in learning, leading, and serving. And that's what we're doing
Yep.
today. It's just in different
Right.
ways. It's just like different battlefields, but it's the same war that we're in. My story kind of started out very much underdog in the sense that I was told I'd never play sports. I was told I'd always struggle speaking in front of people, which is kind of funny now, speaking in a lot of places. And, just that I would be special needs, essentially, or autistic. And my mother fought for me in office after doctor's office in Southern Ireland. They all said the same thing. And I have to have some fun with Jordan here. It took an English doctor, God forbid, to see that I just had allergies and they were ready to send me off to autism camp and disregard my future. But the fact was that my mother fought for me, and it was a long process, obviously, from that point, holistic medication, stuff like that, to be able to catch a ball, tie my shoe, open a door. I mean, any of those kinds of things you don't even think about, right? Every single day. But today I've done a lot of throwing, I've done a lot of speaking, and I've done a lot of adventuring for the cause of liberty.
I love that. I love that. It's we joked about it earlier. What do you get when you get a Scotsman, an Englishman, and an Irishman all on the same
A rowdy
podcast
time.
together? You get a rowdy time and some great stories. So when I encountered you at Charleston Southern, where were you in if you don't mind, if we can, go into this part of your story, where were you in your quest for citizenship?
Oh man, yeah, that's the whole other. So it took 18 years to finally put my hand up in that little immigration office in Charleston. I came over first on the religious visa, And then that went to applying for green card, then got the green card, then applied for citizenship, then got the fingerprinting. That I mean, like people don't know all the steps it takes legally to do it the right way. And at that stage, I was still a year or two off because I had to drive. Can you imagine this? From Missouri, working for Ted Cruz on his campaign, 15 hours to Charleston to get sworn in and
Mhm.
drive straight back. I think I had 2 hours of sleep. But it was worth every second, Josh, to finally get there and say, I am an American. And I did it the way that honors my adopted country. And Jordan appreciates this. I am Irish by birth, but I'm Southern by the grace of God.
I love
That's
that.
right.
I love
And
that.
I was honored to be in the room, while you were doing that. And how I met Eric was I had been in Istanbul for several months, coaching a football team over there. I came home and on my voicemail was a friend of mine, John Root, was one of my roommates. He said, "Hey man, I got this guy who's here this summer. He's Irish. He loves Southern history. You're gonna love him." I said, this is a prank." And my next voicemail was Eric, saying all those things, and I said, this isn't real. And then I called him. Sure enough, he's real. Real life, can't imitate it, and we've been fast friends ever since. So, Eric, what led you? It's like professionally from CSU. You mentioned working on Ted Cruz's campaign. I know you worked on a few other presidential campaigns in that same time period. Uh, what led you to start Businesses for Liberty, and what is Businesses for Liberty?
That's a great question. Two major things. So you remember very well, Jordan, in the summer of 2020, our history came under severe attack. Every monument was basically called into question. Everything was terrible. And I just said, look, I'm not even from here. Okay. I'm Irish and I love South Carolina. And we have to learn from our history. The good, the bad, and the ugly make us who we are, just like our memories.
Mhm.
Whether you love Calhoun or you don't, whether you love the Defenders of Charleston Monument or you don't. So I saw a lot of fear in business owners that were like, Eric, they privately messaged me. We love what you're doing, but if we're seen with you, we'll lose half our business. But just know we're praying for you. A lot of veterans did the same thing. So I saw that. That was the first thing that kind of hit me. The second thing was a thing called the election in 2020 when I saw what happened. And I went to Washington January 6th, did nothing wrong. I was way in the back. And I just saw all these people, guys, with Starbucks mugs and Burger King wrappers and all this fast food stuff. And I went to one guy and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "What? I'm here for my, free fair election." I said, "You're drinking from tyranny while we're standing for liberty. Stop drinking from that." And he didn't even connect the dots to that moment. He's like, "You're right." And he took his Starbucks mug and threw it out. It was one of those, disposable ones. And it hit me. I was like, we are complaining while we're feeding the monster. We're feeding this
Mhm.
globalist takeover of our country. And if we think about every purchase as a vote, we're voting with our dollars. So I decided to start Businesses for Liberty to vet business owners that love our country and are willing to say, we're not globalists, we're Americans, we're Southerners, we're proud of our liberty.
I love that. And we've said, before, Sean Foyt, who we've spoken to, he's coming to the Capitol. He has been all over the nation, worshiping at every Capitol, through COVID, through shutdowns, through churches shutting down,
Wow.
everything. The guy's a true patriot. He's a barometer of what's going on across the nation. You're an incredible barometer of what's going on across the state. Every time I see what you're doing, you're in a different city that I've never heard of in South Carolina. And we don't have the largest state. You can, in a few hours, you can drive across the state. Um, but I see that you're in a different city. You're with a different business owner. You've put a lot of miles on your car, and you're a good barometer of what's going on across the state of South Carolina, and you have a good idea of how people truly feel. And so that's an incredible thing. What is, you know, you're showing people that, hey, you can support small businesses, and small businesses can support other small businesses, and we can have a thriving economy. And Jordan and I have said on this podcast that
Mhm.
business in America is represented 99% small businesses make up the foundation of business in America. And so, what have you seen driving across the state? What do you hear from folks? And what would you like to report back?
Yeah, no, that's another great question. I mean, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that BFL, we're very strict. So we have 5 core pillars that we go by. So any business owner, I asked them before when we ever go into any business discussion, are you pro-life, pro-liberty, pro-history? Remember that one? Pro-history, pro-Second Amendment, and America First. And if they were kind of wobbly, like, I don't really know, like, we just don't work together, right? So I don't have anything against them. It's just that's our litmus test. I can't go to all these patriots and say, shop here. And then they couldn't even answer my questions, right? So that's a big thing for me. So once we've vetted these people, oh my gosh, Josh, I love going around and yeah, checking like what matters to them. But the really, I just got off a call right now with about 20 of our business owners, and there's optimism, there's belief that you know what, there is something rising, there is liberty rising in the state.
Mm-hmm.
Joshua Cook said that to me actually the other day up there in the upstate, and you know him well, Jordan.
Oh
And
yeah.
people are waking up, that the fear was all about control, and we all know that here. There
Mm-hmm.
was so much in the guise of safety and don't question. And no, people are done with that. Libertarian people, right wing conservative, even middle of the road, people are just saying, we want something different. We're done listening to the experts on all these things, and we want to work with each other. Also, the other thing I tell people is when I'm talking to them, you get better service from small business owners.
Yeah.
You get a better experience with small business owners. So I think to answer your question, though, what I'm hearing is people are believing in their communities again. Not necessarily not in Columbia, not in Washington, D.C., but they're believing in Powdersville. They're believing in
Mm-hmm.
Walterboro. They're believing in Kingstree, places you're talking that people don't hear about, but they're
Good.
wonderful places. Those are my favorite places to go, to be honest.
Right. And it's really, we're not playing into this national narrative that we can be separated by just, the script that's being played out, across media.
Right.
There is either completely this way, and it's really in an effort to separate these communities. You work with pastors, you work with all sorts of different people across the state. One goal of this podcast that Jordan and I, why we do this every week, is to try to destroy that narrative, of
Yeah.
separating people, separating people within communities, separating the state. We often look at the state. We've got the Low Country, we've got the PD, we've got the Grand Strand, we've got the Upstate, we've got the Midlands. That somehow that one may be better than the other, or one may be this. What I'm trying to say is there's, hypothetically, there's always a way to try to separate folks in some different way. But at the end of the day, we're all patriots. We're all citizens of the United States of America, and we want to see, less government involved in our business and our families, and we want to see, more opportunity to thrive, and to, own property and
Mm-hmm.
businesses, and
Exactly.
without someone else telling us exactly how to do it, and how much we need to, do things their way. Jordan, go ahead. I know you're holding on to something there.
I was gonna say that reminds me of a book I was reading a couple years ago called the Maker versus the Takers, and how Jesus often criticized the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the wealthy, but it was every time he criticized wealthy folks, it was people associated with people that got their wealth from being associated with government, either the Roman government or the temple.
Mm.
He never went and criticized the Galileans for the tradesmen, the small business owners, for making a profit from selling their fish, from
Exactly.
from woodworking. Like that never happened anywhere in Jesus's ministry. So really, just connecting the dots there from a biblical perspective, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. There's some folks of different political persuasions that kind of criticize that anybody makes a profit is taking advantage or what have you. But the biblical mindset there is if you're using government power to get money from your fellow citizens, that's wrong. If you're providing a service to your neighbors and trading with them, that's good. Like that is the created order, the way things are supposed to be. Eric, on the Businesses for Liberty side, uh, are you finding more businesses, more business owners than you thought you originally would have, like when you started this process a few years ago?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I really had no idea. I mean, the funny thing is, I don't have a business degree. Like we all have our different degrees from CSU, and I did. If someone had told me 5 years ago I'd be uniting business owners, I'd be like, "You're nuts! I don't even have a degree in that field."
Hmm.
But no, I wondered, especially after the monuments and all of that, would there be people going, "Oh, I don't want anything to do with that guy"? But in actual fact, this was amazing about what God can do. It planted trust in people saying, if you're willing to do that, we're going to go with the people you vouched for in business because you stood when it wasn't easy to stand. And people
Hmm.
remember that stuff. They remember. And speaking of money, like it's the love of money that's the root of all of this, not having money,
Right.
and then I think that's again where people go wrong. And I tell people, hey, if you make a lot, you can give a lot. Like
Yeah.
you're not barely
Absolutely.
able to make it yourself, and then you can't help your neighbor. So we've
Hmm.
actually had business owners in BFL, for example, who have literally paid for someone else's membership who couldn't
Hmm.
afford it for that year. I mean, I love that. Like that shows they were doing better that year, so they were able to fund another business to be able to be promoted and be in our membership.
I love that. How do you become a member for Business for Liberty? And I know you talked about that process now, but I believe it's businessesforliberty.com.
Yeah, so every single one of our 238 business owners I've personally vetted. I've been either on the phone with them or we've gone back and forth in email or Zoom or some way. I've asked them those questions. Our sign up process is extremely simple. Once they get through those five, essentially at that point, I need to figure out how many employees they have. And then depending on what packages they want to go with, it just depends on how many times they want to be promoted throughout that year, whether it's through the interview, through, if they had a sale going on, how many times they want to be seen on 13 social media platforms to 64,000 people.
I love that. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I see you working really hard week to week doing that. It's not something that you just kind of throw on the back burner. It is something that you've
No,
invested a lot of time. It is
but I love
something
it.
that
I honestly, Joshua,
you
like
do.
it is a lot of work, but I absolutely love every bit of it.
At Businesses for Liberty, we proudly promote patriot business owners who are pro-life, pro-liberty, pro-history, pro-Second Amendment, and America first. We believe for such a time as this, we must build a patriot economy. Wouldn't it be great to get behind small business owners who believe in America, support families with the needs that they have? Wouldn't it be amazing to be part of that? Well, you can be. Check us out at businessesforliberty.com, where we do that every single day.
So, speaking of things that you love, and I wouldn't have a whole lot of time left, but I know you started something new that based on two things that you love very much that we haven't talked about yet. So, tell us about Throw the Ball.
Yes. Oh, I'm so glad you asked that because I never get asked about Throw the Ball Foundation. I started Throw the Ball Foundation for two reasons. One, we both love the Cubs, right? We both love our
That's right.
Chicago Cubs. But secondly, because, well, back to the beginning of this interview, I was told I could never catch a ball, throw, play sports, any of that. And when we immigrated to America, I fell in love with two things: American history, which proved itself Southern history, and secondly was baseball. And I remember reading the newspapers, right? Like Braves edged the Cubs 3-2, and you'd read about what happened in the game. You guys, I don't know if you guys did that with your parents, but I
Hmm.
remember doing that, grabbing the sports section, going and actually seeing guys like Sammy Sosa play the game, and just always wanting to play myself. And I never really got that opportunity in college. I was so into politics and stuff, and then different things. But here I am now thrown with people that are disabled, that are elderly, that are younger, that have pitched in the major leagues. I got Kyle Farnsworth want me to drive down to Florida. He pitched for the Cubs, the Braves, the Rays. He wants to set me up at his place and have some fun for a day. But like, it shows what's possible. So here's what happens. Okay, so just to take you through, if I took you out and did throw the ball, I throw with you, get your best throw, even if you only had one on camera, get that picture, put some music with it. I interview you afterwards and say, why is it important, Jordan, to throw the ball? Not because how good you are, but why does it mean to you? because everyone's different. Some people have told me, well, I had a really abusive home and it was the only thing that brought me joy. Other people have told me stuff like I had drug addiction and I had a great chat with my brother, tossing it back and forth. So there's so many stories that I've been able to uncover through a very simple exercise called throw the ball.
That's awesome. And obviously you picked the Cubs being the greatest underdogs in baseball.
Exactly right.
To be fans of. Yeah.
We finally won it in 16. Finally.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
I remember that. It was a great moment. That was.
I had to change my whole eschatology viewpoint after the Cubs won the World Series. I figured that had some kind of play in the end times, but apparently not.
The philosopher was taken off Wikipedia, Jordan.
Yeah. Well, that's tale for another day. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Erik, it has been great having you on here. It is always great to catch up with you. You're such a great person, and we can't wait to spend more time with you, and hope to see you this weekend at Jordan's campaign kickoff. It's going to be a great event. It's going to be a incredible victory for Jordan this year. We're just going, like my hat says, from victory to victory, because we know the victor, and that's Jesus Christ. Right. And so we know, our power and authority. We know that we're called to rule and reign, and we're doing that. And we're so thankful for what you're doing in this state. You are a true patriot, and we're so thankful for what you're doing. For the folks that are listening on, in the show notes are the links for what Erik is involved in. And if you're a business owner in South Carolina, and we know that some of you are that are listening because we've spoken to you, follow those links and have a conversation with Erik. And to say the least, it's going to be a great conversation. It's always a wonderful one. Erik's a great listener, and really knows his stuff and loves the Lord, loves his country, loves his state. So stay tuned for next week that Jordan and I are going to talk about some more things going on here at the State House in the wonderful state of South Carolina. And thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.